Hi there, and welcome to Dr. Bascom Pillai's Human Evolution Web Series 2016. This is part 2 for the Nambu Botanicals presentation on sound-infused herbs for minding the body. We have a really exciting show today that gets to the core of health, mental, physical, and emotional well-being, and it's even the very fabric that makes up life and the universe, and that is sound. To understand and have a deeper relationship with sound, Dr. Pillai teaches that you can change your life, you can change events, and you can change situations. And today we're delving into sound and how sound synergistically helps our mind and bodies, and how phonemes and herbs can help us not only physically, but also in relationships, mental performance, motivation, and even possibly attract desirable events our way. And we'd like to thank and honor Dr. Bascom Pillai, the founder of Nambu Botanicals. If you are familiar with him, you may know that he's a world-renowned speaker, he's an educationalist, he's a philanthropist, he's a humanitarian, and he's a Tamil Siddha master. He also directs Vopec Pharmaceuticals in India, Nambu Botanicals in the United States, and East-West Integrative Institute and the Phonemic Intelligence subsidiary of Pillai Center. He has many other companies as well, but these are the ones that we're going to be more directly speaking on and sharing information on today. All of Dr. Pillai's initiatives, all his projects and his companies have one central focus, and that is to bring innovation in science to ancient mystical practices that have helped humanity, have helped Asia and India for so long, and now he'd like to bring these out to the world and showcase them in a way that they can very practically help people in their daily lives. And I'm Beth Damaris, the facilitator and director for your show today. I am a director of Nambu Botanicals, and I became very intimately involved in herbs and the mysticism of India on my very first journey. And it's carried me through to 10 years of being in India and understanding the sacredness and the amazing gifts that this land has to bring to all of humanity all around the world. So let's give some reference to how important sound is in our lives and our mental capacity, even our mental clarity, and the well-being in our bodies. Our bodies are all made up of sound, and the energy that drives the cells in your body is through vibration. I found a passage or a quote here for Dr. James Gminski, and his distinguished professor of chemistry at UCLA. And what he did is he used an atomic force microscope to reveal that every cell in our body has a unique sonic signature and sings together with its neighboring cells. Your cells are like a nano chorus, each one singing, actually singing together. I thought that was a very profound way of kind of innovatively looking at cells and looking at how sound impacts cells. And then on a bigger, broader scope, we have Einstein. He says everything in life is vibration. There's nothing solid in the universe. A form that appears solid is actually created by an underlying vibration. Now, to illustrate this point of Einstein's a little bit more, I'm going to play a 20 to 30 second clip from YouTube. And I want you to guess where this was recorded. Can you guess where that was recorded? It actually sounds like an orchestra that's warming up, but what it really is a recording from space, from NASA's Voyager. So that just shows how prevalent sound is, not only just here in the spoken word and in our own communication and the music here on Earth, but also the entire universe is made up of a whole complex fabric and web of beautiful sounds. So other notable discoveries about sound. Dr. Emoto, he shows how water crystals create shapes when certain words like love or hate are spoken into the water. Particularly when love is spoken, it kind of creates a really beautiful snowflake. And when hate is spoken, it's more of a chaotic graphical design that comes out. Also cymatics. Cymatic reveals a strange and beautiful symmetry at work in nature, and it's inspired by the work of Dr. Hans Jenny, who created images using both water and sound. And it's like the vibration of the sound actually makes water, and I've also seen some of his work done with sand, create a imagery that's very symmetrical in link to different symmetries and graphical forms you just find that naturally occur in nature, plant cells, and other places as well. Now, sound is everywhere, and as you know, sound in music can help you calm down. It can also make you feel uplifted. You can tell when you hear music or you hear a sound or a song on the radio, one that you like, or maybe one you just feel particularly relaxing. And that sound, you can tell how it really very demonstrably affects you. I notice like the sound of waves in the ocean, it can wash away any kind of sadness I have. And even when I hear the chirp of birds in the morning, it kind of makes me realize that there's a beautiful world out there that's yet to be discovered with that day. And also in the medical area, some hospitals are using sound therapy for patients who have had neurotrauma, and it's helped these patients focus and re-engage in life. So it's given them the stimulus and the energy to be more active in life, more responsive. And another hospital did a study on patients who were receiving transplants, and those who received these transplants also had music therapy. That group, they resulted in less reported pain and faster recover times. So we know that music, sound has a profound impact on our emotions, on our moods, even on our motivations. You use an iPod when you go work out because it makes you do that Stairmaster faster and longer. Now a little bit about how Dr. Pillai speaks about sound in herbs. And the phoneme-infused herbs of Nambu Botanicals, which is really the difference that we have. We have fantastic herbs that are, as much as we can, organically grown and formulated with the most purest ingredients. But we also put these phonemes in them. And this is really the special magic there. I call it having a sound body, and Dr. Pillai refers to consciousness as being part of chemistry. So consciousness is chemistry. In fact, every herb has a relationship to a protein, a neuron, a receptor, an enzyme, or hormone that's actually in the brain. And different areas of the brain, for instance, high health, has a chemical that links to the anterior cingulate that suggests that it may enhance the function. Bacopa also interacts with serotonin receptors in the way that smooths out the serotonin function. And this is likely something that's bringing mood elevation. So it's interesting that the herbs, the congruency between the herbs and the chakra and the energy of the chakra, as well as what the brain response, it's all linked. It's all related. And that's why I affectionately call our sound-infused herbs having a sound body. So now we'd like to speak a little bit more directly about the herbs and how the sound in the herbs, the phoneme in the herbs actually enhances the properties and the experience that you get with the herb, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So the first herb that we're talking about is Enlightenment Formula. And this is Eclipta alba with sound phonemes to activate and balance the brain chakra. So this herb was discovered by the mystic Swami Ramalingam. He used it to literally turn his body into light. This is documented through photos, through all sorts of books and everything from the British. And many people witnessed the life of this saint and his transition into light. So Dr. Bascom Pillai affectionately calls our enlightenment formula the light body herb. Chemically, this herb is a hepatoprotector, and which means it helps the liver. And many studies have confirmed that this plant does indeed perform a liver protective function. It also helps with eyes and hair growth. It also gives better concentration and the ability to have higher cognitive functions. It's good for those who maybe have an unhealthy diet, or people who maybe consume alcohol a little bit more on a regular basis. So Enlightenment Formula is really helpful on the body benefits that way. For the brain chakra, there's a link between Eclipta alba and the thalamus. So the part of the brain that controls the sensory perception, which is really interesting because this enlightenment formula, that's what it's actually crafted for, is to give us access to different spiritual experiences. And Dr. Pillai calls it sort of the herb that will remove karma. And he mentions that quite a bit in one of his videos. My personal experience is that it's helped me with my speech communication, and others have said that all of a sudden they could clear up family relationships and problems through taking enlightenment formula. That was the only thing that they saw that was different, and they were having difficult family problems, parents, brothers and sisters, and all of a sudden they found that there was sort of a new path forward, that there were new ways, new communications, new connections, new ways of looking at one another and respecting one another. So what I recommend is that you take 2 minimum daily, and it's best to avoid the later in the day times with enlightenment formula, because some people have just reported that it makes them more active at night. So it's great if you can take Eclipta alba in the morning and then maybe at noontime or 2 in the morning or more. It's however you feel your body is responding to this particular herb. And next we have high memory, and it's formulated for the third eye chakra. Some people take this herb to clear up and make their pineal gland more accessible. That's in the midbrain. And it definitely does have, Bacopa has definitely many studies that relate its benefits on the receptors in the midbrain, and it suggests that this sort of spiritual use of this could be true. The highlights about Bacopa, it is used for memory and cognitive skills. It's highly studied by pharmaceutical companies as the seed to a possible drug for neuro disorders of all kinds. And this herb is linked to Saraswati, the goddess of music and communication. And when this herb is taken with Saraswati's sound I'm, then that can give the person who's doing the sound and taking the herb access to some very creative and out-of-the-box thinking. Also, the third eye is known for psychic abilities and big picture thinking. So if you find that you're sort of stuck in the minutiae of things, then Bacopa, a high memory, that will definitely help you reach out of that with purpose and clarity. Now, Bacopa takes a little longer than other herbs to be absorbed into the body and actually to start working. So to see effects, you should give it at least 4 weeks, 4 weeks to be able to notice and be able to track the effects that Bacopa has on your memory, etc. What I find with high memory is that I'm able to access thoughts or situations or things that I remember from maybe several years ago that I maybe only heard once. And it's almost like RAM. It's almost like I can access it in real time while I'm in a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden this reference comes that I've never thought about it since that time, several years ago when I heard it. So it's actually been a bit of a interesting revelation in my experience with high memory. High Health, formulated for the navel chakra, is definitely probably our #1 seller. That in Eclipta alba. And I think the reason is that turmeric, which is in High Health, has a lot of studies, has a lot of different publications. It's been written up a lot. It's revered by both the spiritual community and the scientific community. And we've put turmeric with black pepper, and we've infused the sounds to give courage, action, motivation, and self-esteem in that navel chakra. So that navel chakra is all about action. Turmeric is the herb with, basically, as I mentioned, the most studies associated. So over 600 therapeutic actions have been associated with curcumin, which is the active phytochemical in turmeric. Anti-aging, antioxidant, gets rid of inflammation, particularly in the joints. It helps strengthen all cell membranes in the brain and other parts of the bodies. And we have now sort of this super boosted absorption with a key new ingredient, which is black pepper. And in recent studies, where black pepper and turmeric have been combined, it's showed to increase the bioavailability 1,000 times. That means the absorption of the turmeric is 1,000 times more when you include black pepper. I and many others have used it as a staple. It's like a protective herb that I feel is combating negative foreign energies that either manifest kind of physically in my body or also at the energy level. And that's actually culturally a lot how it's used in India. And this herb is for goddess Lakshmi, and it's also known for the goddess in general. It's known in India to repel negativity, particularly around money and health. And some believe that by taking turmeric, your money will go up. We're going to kick off a challenge one day that will help people see if we can test that. So high health really gives me and others sort of positive thoughts real time. So I'm feeling a little down. What I find is this herb makes sure I don't stay there. Easily I can pick myself up with a new action-oriented outlook. And even some of the preliminary studies that have been done with curcumin is that it has a link to the interior cingulate, which we've talked about earlier in the presentation, is the part of the brain involved with motivation. So high health for the navel chakra is my staple every day. And now we move on to love and grace for the heart chakra. This is Tulsi that's infused with sounds to attract whatever you wish to attract. It's obviously associated with love and romance, but also just relationships and friendships in general. This herb is a highly celebrated herb, is Krishna's herb, and Tulsi is also regarded as a goddess in India. And if you read the story about goddess Tulsi that's posted on the Nambu Botanicals blog, there's some amazing characteristics of how Tulsi actually embodies love that's really from a higher plane. It's this really beautiful devotion. This is like an angel herb for me. I take it each day, and I spontaneously reach for it when I feel like I kind of need to lighten up or smile a little bit. From the physical side, the science side, it's formulated again for the heart chakra, and Tulsi nurtures and protects the areas of our chest that kind of have congestion in them. So it can relieve congestion, it kicks mucus out of the lungs. And the natural presence of the magnesium in Tulsi, it keeps the arteries healthy, improves blood flow, oxygen in the body, and there's other ingredients that helps also maintain healthy blood pressure. And there's one other really audacious thing about Tulsi, and that is that the regular consumption of Tulsi has shown to assist in the detoxification from environmental chemicals and radiation. Now, this is something I've never read about any of the other herbs. So it's this sort of angel protector that kind of keeps this light around you as you take it to ensure that you stay the healthiest. And if you travel, you should take Tulsi along, take love and grace along, so that it can protect you from different environments in different cities. Now we also have a special promotion that's associated with the webinar, and that is if you buy 2 or more of Nambu Botanicals formulas, then you get 15% off. And we're honoring that until April 23rd with the discount code NAMBUWEBINAR. So the discount codes are case sensitive, so you would just type it right into the area of your checkout that has discount code there into the input box, exactly as you see it here, and it is, as I said, it is case sensitive. And now we're at the place in the webinar which I think a lot of you people have been waiting for, and that's the Stephen Halpern interview. It's a real honor to be welcoming Stephen on this webinar and to be able to hear from him about, pioneering sound healing. Stephen, is a Grammy nominee recording artist, composer, and researcher. He is the founding father of sound healing, whose music relaxes the body, quiets the mind, and soothes the soul. With over 50 albums, MTV calls him the original New Age artist. And now the interview with Stephen on sound, science, and healing from truly a pioneering sound healer. First, Stephen, thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. Delighted to be here.
Okay, excellent. The first question, I think a lot of people love to hear about how you got involved in and how you got interested in sound healing.
Well, I'd be delighted to answer. As a kid, I was always into music and started playing trumpet at age 9 and studying jazz and jazz rock improvisation. This was something that came very naturally to me. I first read about the healing powers of sound used in ancient times in an article about Edgar Cayce. So that stimulated me to search through many different not easily accessible books back in the 1960s and 70s about the healing powers of music in ancient times. And in my own meditations, set out on a quest to find out what healing music would sound like and work like in the late 20th century. That would be perhaps updating the work that Pythagoras did in ancient Greece, and that the ancient yogis were tuning in as part of their sound healing lineage and wisdom system 5,000 years ago. So that was how I started getting intellectually interested in it. I had some experiences playing trumpet in high energy jam sessions and on stage where the music suddenly took hold of me, where the music played through me. It was no longer me being the musician who had practiced all these hours, could play all these fancy scales and runs, but where the music just took on a life of its own, and I got into the flow state and tapped into another level of being, and that was a major breakthrough for me, to find out that I didn't have to play the little black dots written by other white musicians or dead white composers from Europe many centuries ago, but where that process was alive in me, where I had tuned into my own muse and was becoming a channel for other music to come through. But it was really in a meditation in a sacred redwood grove in California, 2 weeks after I came out to California for what I thought was a 2-week visit, in which I started hearing the music in my head, found myself in front of a piano, an instrument that I had not studied, but knew a little about, and started playing the gentle, meditative music that I have been known for ever since. So that was really a gift. It was where my calling, my dharma, was revealed to me, and it was when the little light would go on in my head and go, this is why I'm here. I've always known there was more to music than just demonstrating my own virtuosity or impressing the critics or impressing the audience. It was an opportunity to share love and to help people get into a meditative state, which for people like me is a type A, almost adult ADHD, ADD, not hyperactive, but it would help me calm down, help me get into that place, and I could work and support my own life, my sanity, and my health by listening to and by composing and playing music that would help me get into a deeply relaxed state, and that would help listeners get into a relaxed state. And finding out that there were millions of people who were looking for something that was legal, that was non-addictive, that could work, and that would work. All you had to do was listen. You didn't have to go to major schools. You didn't have to learn to play an instrument. The music would play you.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it sounds like, I mean, really what you're talking about is sort of a deeply spiritual experience that you had with your music, and I'm sure you continue to have, and that also grows and flows through other parts of your life as well. Is that correct?
Exactly. As I look back, a lot of my musical breakthroughs have been triggered or catalyzed by some of my spiritual practices and spiritual breakthroughs, and then vice versa in the studio. Some of my spiritual breakthroughs were catalyzed by the musical breakthroughs that would happen in the studio as I'm recording, and a lot of those became the basis of my albums. From the first one, Chakra Suite, to the most recent one, Mindful Piano, I did not even know I was going to record more than one song about a year ago when Mindful Piano came through. And when I started playing that day, I literally could not lift my fingers off the keyboards. And pretty much the entire album just flowed through. At a certain point, I'd take a breath, start the next song, but it was all in that flow state where I was tapped in at such a deep level. There was no separation between me and the music. It was just, I was the music, and the music was in me and through me. And then I was just a vehicle of the music to help make it audible and to manifest in the physical plane.
Awesome. And I know you've helped a lot of people with your music too. I think you've helped a lot of people discover their spiritual sides, to discover, a different aspect, a different level of life and fulfillment and finding their own way and their own purpose in healing. Which actually brings me to the next question. Would you, Stephen, consider music to be an art or a science?
Interesting question. I would consider it both, and I would also say that when I am in the studio, I am not thinking as a scientist. I am an artist. I let go of any preconceptions, and I'm totally in the moment, and therefore can respond to inner guidance and cues to follow where the music takes me. But it was in response to some of my very first public performances, intimate public performances, where I was in the presence of major scientists like Dr. Stanley Krippner and Dr. John Lilly, who said, what we see subjectively are that people are relaxing and meditating. That's great. What you need to be doing to be taken seriously as a scientist is to conduct scientific research using biofeedback, rather than just asking people, as the music therapists have done, does this music make you feel relaxed or agitated or energized? We took biofeedback readings, including brainwave biofeedback, GSR, the electrical conductivity on the surface of the skin, and most significantly, aura photography, Kirlian photography of the electromagnetic energy field, the subtle energy field around people. This was done in 1973 with some of the scientists who were featured in the book The Secret Life of Plants and Psychic Discoveries Around the Iron Curtain. So this was proprietary, groundbreaking research in 1973 that because it was done at a small college rather than a large university, never got the exposure that it really should have received, but yet put the music on a scientific basis that proved that despite what people have typically read in other contexts about the healing powers of classical music, most music was not composed with the intention of creating a relaxation state or a healing experience in the body. And the key here, Beth, is that one of the things that I've learned about certainly a lot of healing music is that this kind of music assists the body in healing itself in the same way that the whole field of sound healing is a genre, whether you're working with tuning forks or Tibetan bowls or mantras and chants. with that energy vortex assists the body in amplifying its own self-healing energies, its own innate wisdom. And we say that because in so doing, we are not acting as medical professionals. We are assisting the body in doing what the body has been genetically programmed to do. So that's an important distinction. And one of the keys of that is that when we facilitate the individual getting into a relaxed state of being, as Dr. Herbert Benson pointed out, activating and evoking the relaxation response, that is the most significant response. All other systems in the body work well when you balance the brain, when you enhance the brain-heart connection and set up a tuned, oscillating system through breathing and stimulating the brain when your respiration shifts. And this is why one of the things that I always recommend to people, if you want to know if the music is relaxing to you, observe your breath. If you're breathing slower and deeper, that's bringing you into the zone of relaxation. Most music has a rhythm that is faster than a relaxed heartbeat. And one of the other reasons most music doesn't work to get you into a relaxed state is that most music is based on what composers call the tension and release syndrome. In other words, that the music will build up and create tension and then release it. As an ex-New Yorker, I say, I got enough tension already. Why can't we go right to relaxation? And indeed, if I sing this little pattern right now, you and our listeners can verify that for yourself. Unless you're driving, just close your eyes a second, and in 5 seconds, notice what's happening inside your body. Observe your breath, observe what you're feeling and what you're thinking. So if I go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, I bet most of you are holding your breath right now, waiting for that final note, that do, the end of the octave. We are anticipating where the music is going. We are projecting into the future. And Beth, relaxation only happens in the present moment. It only happens in the now. Meditation only happens in the present moment. And most music is therefore, right off the bat, not your most appropriate or effective choice, because it's literally creating stress and tension as you're waiting for that other note. If you're holding your breath, that's the exact opposite of a relaxation response. And that phenomenon, which I christened the scalus interruptus syndrome, has become a little video that I did a couple years ago. It's gone viral. It's on hundreds of websites around the world because people suddenly get, with that very simple exercise, how tuned in we are subconsciously and unconsciously. So we're stressed without even realizing we're stressed. Part of my gift was to notice that I was being stressed by these things that didn't seem to affect other people, and I'm the guy waving my hand and said, wait a minute, the emperor has no clothes. This is not really working. In fact, in my research, we find out that most people did not even know what a relaxation state really felt like. And now that people are familiar with yoga and more people with meditation, there is more of an understanding, and people like me wanted music that would be in harmony with that intention. Not to say that classical music or rock or pop isn't fine. For entertainment purposes, that's fine. When I was nominated for a Grammy in 2012, the Grammys called me up and said, you're spelling entertainment wrong on the cover of your album. And I said, no, folks, this is brainwave entrainment. You are spelling entrainment incorrectly, because the music industry is the entertainment industry. I'm in the health and healing industry, and that's a couple extra letters that makes a huge difference. So that's why it's a science and an art, but that's how we know that there are really important things going on, because we can check it out with medical and subtle energy field apparatus that most researchers are not even aware of to this day. But it's like if you or I look at a drop of water taken from a river or a pond, we don't see all the microscopic organisms in there. You need the right scientific technology and measuring devices. I had the good karma to be connected with the leading developers of proprietary research equipment working with subtle energy fields in the 1970s that really changed my life and allowed me to understand the power of the music that I was working with.
Excellent. Awesome. That is that's one answer that is completely we could go so many different directions with that answer.
Yes.
Very very rich, and I appreciate that. I'm glad you took it all the way. I particularly love what you talked about, and when you and I met in Sausalito a couple of months ago, I remember you speaking about that too, which is this when you started doing the scale of do re mi, and then illustrated to folks that, hey, you're waiting for the next one, and that's not what music, meditation, healing, all of that, or that actually is one form of music, but what you're illustrating is that another form of music is, more healing, more in the now, and more meditative, and certainly more along how Dr. Pillai, teaches on, and what we do with the phonemes in our herbs as well. So fantastic. Thank you so much.
Right. And I would just say the work that Dr. Pillai and you are doing with the phonemes is opening up a whole new dimension of information and exploration that takes things that I've been doing into a whole other dimension. So I'm very excited in learning more about that. And again, over the concept of entrainment, we are entrained by our environment all the time. We're entrained by the drummer in any music, by the pulse in any classical music, even if there isn't a drummer in there. And that's all well and good for most of the things, but with some of the more subtle aspects, we need a different kind of subtle music, and you need instrumentation to measure the effects that are much more subtle than most people have considered. So it's really opening. One of the things that I brought into the whole field of sound healing was the fact that we needed to use new modalities of scientific equipment to measure the subtle responses that people were seeing and feeling, but didn't have a vocabulary to describe. So indeed, part of where I'd like to take my music next is including additional ways of using social media or some of the semi-medical devices that people can check their own biofeedback and heart rate and possible brain coherence, that they can see and feel for themselves the effect that can happen literally within seconds. Some of the other projects that I'm working on now are adding because sometimes, for instance, when we need to be filing or doing some clutter clearing, a very functional use of sound healing, it's good sometimes to have music with a beat to work with. So some of my latest recordings, in fact, for clutter clearing and pain relief, add music that you could move to a little bit with some rhythms, but including subliminal affirmations and brainwave entrainment for a threefold way to affect consciousness and target very specific outcomes by the nature of the affirmations that we encode into the music. So that's one of the things that I am working with, as well as my latest album will include additional use of the tambura, which is the traditional acoustic entrainment, brainwave entrainment instrument that's central to Indian raga music. I mean, the people that invented that instrument with that buzzing sound that sets up the drone against which the sitar or the sarod or the flute player will improvise and do the ragas, that sound itself was scientifically designed to get people's brainwaves into the deep alpha and theta state and get the performance into that state as well. So it's always been something that I've used in concert, but only sparingly have used on recordings. Many people are not able to relax to that buzzing sound because it's so different than anything that they've heard until they are able to allow themselves to shift gears, to change consciousness and allow the music to take them deeper. And then that opens up a whole new area of exploration, and that's part of what I'm working on now.
Fantastic, and I know we're going to share a clip of your new music, your next pieces of art and science after this interview. Stephen, can you share a little bit about your experiences as an educator and a pioneer in how music heals as a science?
Well, certainly. When I started speaking publicly and doing workshops publicly, I worked a lot with rhythm and some of the concepts that I'm talking about. But in 1977, I was presenting at the first Festival of Mind, Body, and Spirit in London and came upon the work of Dr. Hans Jenny, known as cymatics. I was so impressed with it because it made visible the effects of sound vibrations on solids and liquids and gases like water and oil and sand sprinkled on top of a vibrating surface. So the geometric patterns were so profound that I rushed my first book into publication, which I self-published, to help popularize that information. And that was right at the beginning of my career. So I was traveling virtually every weekend throughout the year, with a couple holidays taken off for good measure, where I would give workshops and show them pictures of the cymatics effects of playing certain kinds of instruments, certain kinds of sounds, and how it would affect on gases and liquids and et cetera. And in so doing, got on a lot of radio shows, a lot of TV shows, where typically the host would say, "Wow, sound could be used for healing? I've never heard of such a thing. Did you invent that?" And I'd say, "No, this is actually the most ancient uses of sound, going back thousands of years in India and China and Greece and Egypt, but for hundreds of years it's been relegated to just being ignored." And it really feels like, with stress being the number one issue that affects us medically and health-wise, that I wondered, why aren't people working to decrease stress with the power of sound?
Yeah.
And it became my job to educate people as to why they should be looking into that. And then here's some of the new developments and the new breakthroughs that we have with that. But for most people, the physical act of just getting them to be able to relax is a life-changing moment for them, because now they have a technology that they can use on their own. And what I like about sound is, if you use the right music and the right sound, it can take you there within seconds. When I first took my music to the music therapy field, they said, "Well, we have classical music that can do that, and if you take an hour, you'll be relaxed at the end of that hour." And I would say, "Excuse me, I come from New York. I don't have an hour. I got a minute. What do you have that can get me there in a minute?" And I said, "Oh, there's no music that's ever been composed that can do that." I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I have composed some new music, and here's a scientific proof with these biofeedback studies that I've done that shows that if the right instruments, the right compositional structure and approach, and the right consciousness is used, you can create music that can relax people and help them get into a meditative state within seconds rather than 20 minutes or an hour." And starting in the late 60s and early 70s, and more relevant now than ever, people don't have 20 minutes or an hour. In fact, one of the things that I was so delighted to read when I first met Dr. Pillai was his book, The 1 Minute Meditator, or something like that, which said, "Look, I recognize you folks in America are in a hurry, so I'm going to give you some tools that you can use in 1 minute. And that's when I said, this is someone that I need to pay attention to because he gets it. And then, of course, as I began to study his teachings and attend seminars and workshops, I discovered, of course, that there's a whole lot that goes way deeper than that. But that's the context, and that's why my background coming from New York, in a sense, set me up to want something that was effective and that could work very quickly because I didn't have, as much as I would like to have 20 minutes to meditate twice a day, sometimes it's hard fitting it in. So I want to get right into that zone. And the first audience that I ever worked for was myself. I want music that can get me into those states very quickly. And my latest series, the Deep Theta and the Deep Alpha brainwave entrainment albums, work within seconds. And those are some of the clips what we're going to share with you so that you can hear and feel in your body, in your breathing rate, in your pulse, and how it shifts your state of being within seconds. And that is why it's such a subtle but such a powerful modality and a sound technology that I think is only going to get a whole lot more popular in the next number of years. And part of my job has always been to help educate people as to why it's important and then how to make the wise and appropriate choices for the most effective outcomes and benefits.
Fantastic. And I know you just shared a little bit about where you're taking your music next. Now, your new pieces of work with the tambura and some of the other pieces that you mentioned, you had said that they were good for busy work, I guess, or clutter work. And this is something that I think would be really helpful. I love the direction you're taking this in because it's really helpful for people to bring a sound into their lives throughout the day and on a more consistent basis to actually make an effect on their body and how they can do it when they're just working kind of mindlessly, just kind of taking care of some necessary things that sometimes aren't that pleasant, right? Sometimes it's a little bit stressful to do that. It's like, why am I doing this when I could be doing something else and all? So it's actually healing that mind state of frustration and I don't think people are always so aware of that.
No, because people are not trained and have never had any education in how to become aware of a lot of these things. On the other hand, and what I was mentioning, I've used tambura throughout my career, going back 40 years. But what I've noticed is unless people are familiar with the sound and know how to use it as a vehicle and as a tool to go deeper. Some people used to send my albums back and said, that little buzzing sound, it gives me a headache. So I usually do at least 2 different mixes, one with the tambura and one without. So people could, if they don't like it, they could just skip over that song. And then using rhythms is really an unknown area, so we're starting to do research with it, and also knowing that because exercise is so important, let's see how people respond to music that has a rhythm, that has the entrainment, brainwave entrainment, has subliminal affirmations, and I test everything out first on myself, but that's just me. I found it works for me. Then I put it out and get feedback from people, and then if the feedback is positive, then the albums are made available to the public. But people need to pay attention to what instruments they like. In the same way that with the cymatics research, even if people say they like the sound of a violin, the wave characteristics of the sawtooth wave that the violin typically makes creates a lot of stress imagery of what a violin, a tone made by a violin compared to, for instance, a sound made by a French horn. The violin curdles the smoke-filled research container, as opposed to the French horn or like the electric piano that I use, that creates a very harmonious visual image using cymatics technology. So again, there are various factors to be considered, but most importantly, people need to pay attention to what works for them. Once they know how to recognize a relaxation state. And that's where having a little training in yoga or going to a biofeedback lab so that you can know what it feels like when you're in that state gives you a clearer perspective and more accurate perspective to recognize when something is relaxing or when it's not.
Right, right. Yeah, that education is so important, and I don't feel like people are, I think people are becoming in tune with their bodies and their minds more, as we go on. And I feel like there's sort of a full circle being done on the ancient sciences, being kind of deemed in the entertainment space, and then moving over, and I know your work and it's certainly our work too, is kind of moving that from the entertainment space over to a healing space, a health space, a therapy, just something that's more essential to the fulfillment of a being. So thank you, Stephen. I think that pretty much wraps up our time together here. I want to very, very grateful for your time and your education. I think everyone who's going to be listening to this is going to find this incredibly insightful and opening up new avenues and new ways of viewing music and sound and how it can affect their full body and mind. So thanks so much.
Right, you're so welcome. And if people are interested in reading a little more, I did write a major book in 1985 called Sound Health, and I have a number of free articles on my website on sound healing that they can visit at stephenhalpern.com.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Stephen.
So that concludes the second Nambu Botanicals webinar in the Dr. Pillai series. We thank you all for joining the show and for staying all the way through. And certainly was quite a bit of fun putting all of this material together. And I just wanted to remind everybody about the promotion. The promotion that we have going on is the buy 2 or more bottles and receive 15% off before April 23rd. And you can do that, of course, at the Nambu Botanicals website. The discount code is Nambu Webinar, and that's capital N and a capital W, one for Nambu, one for webinar. So we hope you all can take advantage of that, and we will see you next time. Namaste.